whether we like it or not, we're going to war. At some point in the next 8-ish years, that's what many astrologers have been telling us. Looking around the current environment, it's not shocking. It's not hard to believe that that's a reality, a possibility, a probability. It's not. This video is simply about explaining why that is, rather than just telling you that because Uranus is in Gemini, and anytime Uranus is in Gemini, the United States goes to war 100% of the time since its inception. I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to explain why that is. Uranus was in Gemini during the Revolutionary War. It was there during the Civil War, and it was there during the World War II. Sorry, I'm still got to finish this coffee. So astrologers jump on this app and we're like, see, patterns. But there's reasons behind these patterns, and no one ever has explained exactly why that is. Like, yes, Pluto's in Aquarius, returning power to the people is going to be a potential thing. The other thing that I don't ever see mentioned is that Neptune is always, at least on the onset of the initial conflict, the kicking off of that particular conflict or era of time, it's either always in Pisces or Virgo. No one ever mentions that. I'm going to go try to figure out why that is later, but this is just about Uranus and Gemini. Yes, that is a Uranus return for the United States, or Uranus, or however you want to say it. But in our chart, Uranus and Gemini are in the 7th house. In mundane astrology, the astrology of countries, the 7th house is about public affairs, relation, and international relations. Our relationship to other countries. It's also similarly like in your natal chart, it's a house about contracts with other countries. And I believe, especially with the United States having Gemini there, that it's about social contracts. Okay? Gemini is not a sign typically associated with war. So why are we going to war when Uranus is in Gemini? Why would that be a thing? Why would that be an indicator of war for the United States? Gemini is talkative. Gemini is communicative. Gemini is new ideas, or ideas in general. It's change affected by thought, especially with Uranus there. So astrologers are not really doing any kind of job explaining why a planet of revolution and chaos and rebellion and dramatic quick shifts in a sign of thought, communication, including writing, would indicate war. Put the pieces together. When Uranus in the United States chart comes back to its place in Gemini, in the 7th house, we are feeling a need to rewrite contracts. Something is not working. Society is not in alignment. The societal rules, regulations on personal levels and on national levels are not in alignment with who the people are at that time. So we have to fucking burn it all to the ground so that we can, in its place, rebuild something better. And maybe that's where the Neptune in Pisces and the Neptune in Virgo comes into place. This placement typically will lift the veil and show us where things could be better, where we have been hoodwinked or fooled. We start to see how things are not working. Neptune is all about illusions and mystery and deception in a lot of ways. It's a lot about faith. These systems that we have long had faith in, democracy, or, the republic, or us being a Christian nation, which we never were and we never were supposed to be, these are not working. Capitalism is not working. These things we've had faith in for so long are exposing themselves to not be working. And so we as a collective want to rewrite the contracts, but we have to rip up the current contract on a collective level that is typically done through coups, overthrowing the government, and war. After the Revolutionary War, this was a new contract, a new government, a breakaway from the crown. The Civil War, we didn't want, half of us wanted one thing, half of us wanted the other thing. And it became very clear that we could not sustain contracts around human enslavement or a country divided by economics. Very different. The Civil War was an economic war. It was not necessarily a moral war. There was a lot of other things behind the scenes. It's just whoever captures the moral high ground typically wins. So they had to kind of play that Civil War up as like a war against slavery, but it really had a lot to do more so with the differing economics between the North and the South. Again, we're pulling the veil up. We're seeing what's not working. And then, of course, World War II. Like, we got dragged into that, but ultimately, many contracts were rewritten. As a result, we became so entrenched in international affairs at that point. We got dragged in whether we wanted to or not. And I'm like, was Pearl Harbor, a false flag event? That would be a whole other video. But did we want to be more internationally involved? Did we want contracts where we had more power abroad? We also saw the rewriting of contracts around women's liberation. When the men went off to war, women went into factories. That really is what kicked off, or at least gave a huge push, a large momentum towards women's rights here in America. We showed that we could go to work. We can be useful and helpful. We got a taste of what it was like to have some sort of financial independence, and we wanted more of it. Social contracts rewritten. So that is why Uranus and Gemini, typically for the United States at least, because it's in our 7th house, and because it is an indicator, or it is a Uranus return. Returns are always a reflection on the previous cycle. Is it working? Is it not working? That is why whenever Uranus goes into Gemini, the United States typically, always goes to war. So if you've been wondering why that is, and no astrologer has really sat down and said it, I hope that this helps. I gotta go drop my car off at the mechanic and go to work, but I hope this was useful to you. Y'all have a good day.